皆様、こんにちは。米あれこれチャンネルです。4回目の放送です。今日は、あのリンダ・モートンハウ氏っていう方が、えー南極で見たものについての YouTube を見かけたので、これを皆様とシェアしたいと思います。それで次のページで出てくる、ハイジャンプ作戦について一応ご説明しておきますが、ハイジャンプ作戦というのは、1946年から47年にかけて実施されたアメリカ海軍による南極探検で、リトルアメリカ4と呼ばれる研究基地の設立と、極地の過酷な環境下での人員訓練を目的としていました。この作戦には、4700名の人員、13隻の船舶、33機の航空機が投入され、当時の南極における最大規模の軍事作戦となりました。ちなみに、リトルアメリカ4という意味は、第4番目のベースであるということです。エミ賞受賞の調査ジャーナリストのリンダ・ムルトンハウ氏は、25年間にわたり南極で働いていた15人以上の軍人、科学者、請負業者らの機密証言を集めてきました。そして今、81歳の彼女は情報提供者の多くが亡くなり、時間も限られていることを知り、ついに彼らが語ったことを明らかにします。南極の氷の下2マイルの深さに1万2000年以上前に高度な文明によって建設された古代の建造物と巨大な都市が存在し、その中から回収された技術の一部は今も機能しており、機密施設で研究されているというのです。ハウ氏の情報提供者には、海軍の飛行機技師、ノーラッドの将校、地球物理学者、材料科学者らが含まれており、彼らはすべて独立して詳細を裏付けています。これによると複数の政府は1947年のハイジャンプ作戦以降、これらの発見を知っていたとされ、何十年もの間、秘密の考古学的回収作戦を実施しており、特定の地域は衛星画像で意図的に隠され、軍事飛行禁止区域によって保護されているというのです。これはリファレンスとしてここに一応書いてあります。それで、この YouTube は一応日本語字幕を流してありますが、英語のみでお聞きになりたい方は、このサイトに行ってみてください。それでは YouTube のを流します。
Over 4 decades, Linda Moulton Howe has been one of the most respected investigative journalists in the field of unexplained phenomena. She has won multiple Emmy Awards for her television documentaries. She has interviewed hundreds of military personnel, scientists, and government officials. She has built a reputation for rigorous research and credible sources in a field often dismissed as conspiracy theory. But there is one story Linda has never fully told. One investigation that she has been following since 1998, but could never publish completely. One secret that sources warned her would end her career, or worse, if she revealed it publicly. It involves Antarctica, the most isolated continent on Earth, a place governed by international treaty, a place where military operations, scientific research, and geopolitical interests converge in ways the public never sees. For 25 years, Linda has collected testimonies from people who have been to Antarctica. Scientists, military personnel, and contractors. People who signed non-disclosure agreements and were told never to speak about what they witnessed. People who, as they have aged and approached the end of their lives, have decided that some truths are too important to die with. Now, at 81 years old, Linda Moulton Howe herself has made a decision. She has compiled these testimonies. She has verified what can be verified. She has documented what has been hidden. And she is ready to reveal what multiple credible sources have told her exists beneath the ice of Antarctica. Ancient structures, technology that should not exist, evidence of a civilization that predates recorded human history. And most disturbing of all, an active cover-up involving multiple governments that has persisted for over 70 years. This is Linda's story. The investigation she has spent 25 years building. The testimonies she has been collecting from witnesses who wanted the truth known before they died. And the revelation that she believes will change how we understand human history, our planet's past, and what is really happening at the bottom of the world. Linda said, "Before I die, I must tell the truth, because the people who told me these things are dying. And if I do not share what they revealed, this knowledge dies with us." This is what Linda Moulton Howe finally admits they saw on Antarctica. Linda Moulton Howe was born in 1942 in Boise, Idaho. She studied English literature at the University of Colorado Boulder and later earned a master's degree in journalism. In the 1970s, she began working as a television producer and director in Denver, focusing on environmental documentaries. Her career took an unexpected turn in 1979 when she began investigating cattle mutilations, a phenomenon in which livestock were found dead with precise surgical wounds, organs removed, and no evidence of predators or conventional explanations. Her documentary, A Strange Harvest, won a regional Emmy Award and established her reputation for investigating unexplained phenomena with rigor. This was not tabloid sensationalism. Linda approached these subjects with the same standards she would apply to any investigative journalism, including multiple credible sources, documented evidence, and expert analysis. She built relationships with law enforcement, veterinarians, and ranchers who were dealing with something they could not explain. Over the decades, Linda's investigations expanded to include UFO encounters, government secrecy, and testimonies from military and intelligence personnel claiming knowledge of non-human technology and contact. She founded EarthFiles.com, a website dedicated to science and real X-Files investigations. She wrote books, gave lectures, and built a network of sources across military, scientific, and government sectors. Critics dismissed her as a conspiracy theorist. But Linda's work was different from typical UFO researchers. She did not speculate wildly. She documented testimonies. She verified credentials. She followed paper trails. She let her sources speak, and then worked to corroborate their accounts. One location kept appearing in these testimonies: Antarctica. The first hint came in 1998. A Navy flight engineer who had served in Operation Deep Freeze, the military operation supporting scientific research in Antarctica, contacted Linda. He was retired, in his 70s, and wanted to share something he had witnessed in 1982 but had been ordered never to discuss. According to his account, he had been on a routine supply flight from McMurdo Station to a remote research camp. During the flight, there was an equipment malfunction that forced them to land early. While on the ground making repairs, the crew saw something on a distant ridge that did not match the landscape. Geometric shapes that were too regular to be natural ice formations. The flight engineer, whose name Linda protected, described approaching close enough to see what looked like the top of a massive structure partially exposed from the ice. It was angular. It was made of material that was neither ice nor rock. Before they could investigate further, they received orders to return immediately to McMurdo. Upon arrival, they were debriefed by intelligence personnel and told their flight logs would be classified. They signed additional non-disclosure agreements, and they never spoke about it until the engineer, knowing he was dying, contacted Linda. Linda interviewed him extensively. His credentials checked out, his service record was real, and his account was specific enough, including coordinates, dates, and other crew members' names, that she believed he was telling the truth. But one witness was not enough. Linda filed this testimony away and continued her other investigations. Then more witnesses started coming forward. Over the next 20 years, Linda Moulton Howe collected testimonies from over a dozen individuals with direct experience in Antarctica. Not all of them saw the same things, but their accounts formed a consistent pattern that suggested something extraordinary was happening on the continent. A geophysicist who had worked on ice-penetrating radar surveys described finding cavities beneath the ice that were too regular, too large, and too deep to be natural caves. When he reported them, the data was classified, and his team was reassigned. A Navy Seabee, a member of the construction battalion, described working on a classified excavation project in an area miles away from any official research station. He was drilling into the ice, but the project was not about ice cores. He was accessing something beneath the ice. He saw metallic structures exposed at the bottom of the shaft, structures he described as looking manufactured, not geological. A scientist from Argentina's Esperanza base reported that research teams occasionally found artifacts embedded in ice dated to over 12,000 years old. These artifacts were immediately confiscated by military personnel and never appeared in any scientific reports. A pilot who had flown missions across Antarctica described a no-fly zone that was not on any public maps, an area where civilian research flights were prohibited and military flights required special clearance. When he asked about it, he was told it was a sensitive research area, and not to ask questions. Each witness came forward independently. Each had verifiable credentials. Each described elements of a larger picture they could not see individually, but Linda, collecting all their testimonies, began to piece it together. Something was buried under the Antarctic ice. Something old. Something structured. Something that multiple governments knew about and had been quietly investigating for decades. The turning point in Linda's investigation came in 2016 when she was contacted by someone she describes as the most credible source she has ever interviewed, a retired NORAD officer who had been part of a classified Antarctic operation in the early 2000s. This source, whose identity Linda has protected more carefully than any other, provided details that connected all the previous testimonies into a coherent narrative, according to his account and based on what he was briefed on and what he personally witnessed. Beneath the West Antarctic ice sheet, at a depth of approximately 2 miles, there are multiple structures of artificial origin. These structures are not recent. They predate the last ice age, meaning they were built when Antarctica was not covered in ice, over 12,000 years ago. The structures were first detected in the 1940s through seismic surveys conducted by the United States Navy during Operation High Jump, a massive Antarctic expedition led by Admiral Richard Byrd from 1946 to 1947 that officially was about establishing research bases, but included classified components that have never been fully disclosed. Since then, multiple nations, primarily the United States, Russia, and more recently China, have been conducting covert archaeological and technological recovery operations at various sites across Antarctica. These operations are separate from the public scientific research conducted under the Antarctic Treaty. The structures include what appears to be a city, not a small outpost, but an extensive urban complex with buildings, infrastructure, and technology that suggests a highly advanced civilization. Some structures are accessible through natural ice caves or areas where shifting ice has created openings. Others are being accessed through drilling operations disguised as scientific research. Most disturbing, some of the technology found in these structures is still functional. Not all of it is understood, but some devices have been recovered and are being studied at classified facilities in the United States and other countries. The source told Linda that the reason for the secrecy is multi-layered, including the geopolitical implications of claiming discoveries in Antarctic territory, the challenge to conventional historical timelines, and most significantly, the nature of the technology being found, technology that suggests capabilities beyond current human achievement. Linda was stunned. But she is a journalist. She needed corroboration. She asked for evidence. The source provided coordinates of several sites, internal documents with heavy redactions that nonetheless showed classified projects at the locations he mentioned, and names of other personnel who had been involved in these operations, people Linda could attempt to contact for corroboration. Over the next several years, Linda quietly pursued these leads. She contacted other potential witnesses. Some refused to talk. Some confirmed elements of the story without providing details. A few, approaching the end of their lives, decided to tell what they knew. The pattern held. The testimonies aligned. Different witnesses described different aspects of the same underlying reality: ancient structures beneath Antarctic ice, ongoing recovery operations, secrecy across multiple governments, and technology that challenged our understanding of the past. One of the most compelling additional witnesses was a contractor who had worked on a drilling operation in 2003. He described descending into an ice shaft that had been drilled to access what he was told was a geological anomaly. At the bottom, over a mile beneath the surface, they entered a cavity that was not natural. The walls were smooth, almost metallic. There were symbols or writing that no one on the team recognized. And there was a doorway, an actual constructed entrance to something deeper. The contractor's team was not authorized to go further. That required a different level of clearance. But he saw scientists and military personnel in specialized equipment preparing to enter. He was sent back to the surface, paid a substantial bonus, and required to sign a non-disclosure agreement that threatened criminal prosecution for disclosure. Years later, dying from cancer, he contacted Linda and said, "People should know we found something down there. Something that changes everything we think we know about history." Another witness, a satellite imagery analyst, described being assigned to monitor Antarctic territories for various governments. He noticed that certain areas were heavily obscured in publicly available satellite data, not just low resolution, but artificially blurred or covered. When he mentioned this to supervisors, he was told those areas were under special access protocols and not his concern. But he had seen higher resolution images before they were processed for public release. And in those images, he saw structures, rectilinear shapes inconsistent with natural geology, formations that looked like they had been built. He could not prove they were artificial from satellite imagery alone, but combined with ice-penetrating radar data he had seen, the implication was clear. There was architecture under that ice. By 2020, Linda had collected over 15 credible testimonies. She had coordinates. She had dates. She had names and organizational affiliations she could verify. The pattern was undeniable. But she faced a dilemma: publish the investigation and face the consequences, or continue protecting her sources and gathering more evidence. She chose to continue gathering evidence. She began sharing pieces of the story in lectures and interviews, testing the waters, seeing how the information would be received, protecting her most sensitive sources while revealing enough to suggest the scope of what she had learned. The response was mixed. True believers embraced it as confirmation of what they had suspected. Skeptics dismissed it as conspiracy theory. Mainstream media ignored it entirely. Then something happened that Linda says finally convinced her to reveal everything. Her sources started dying. The Navy flight engineer who had first contacted her in 1998 died in 2019. The NORAD officer, her most credible source, died in 2022. Others were in declining health, and Linda herself was now in her 80s, facing her own mortality. I realized that if I didn't tell this story completely, with all the details and all the sources I could responsibly name, then it would die, Linda said in a 2023 interview. These men trusted me with information they believed was crucial, and I have a responsibility to honor that trust by making sure their testimonies are preserved. In late 2023, Linda began preparing what she calls the Comprehensive Antarctic Report, a detailed compilation of all the testimonies she had collected, the evidence she had verified, the coordinates of suspected sites, and the names of operations and personnel she had been able to confirm. She did this knowing it could end her career, knowing she could face legal consequences, knowing that sources still alive could face repercussions, but also knowing that some truths are too important to suppress. In early 2024, Linda released portions of this report through her Earth Files website. The response was immediate and divided. She provided specific coordinates where witnesses claimed to have seen exposed structures or where drilling operations accessed cavities beneath the ice. 77 degrees, 32 minutes south, 104 degrees 51 minutes east, near Vostok Station. 74 degrees 35 minutes south, 164 degrees 32 minutes east, in the Victoria Land region. 82 degrees 53 minutes south, 135 degrees 17 minutes west, in the deep West Antarctic interior. She shared declassified documents from Operation High Jump, showing unusual mission parameters and redacted sections that suggested objectives beyond establishing research stations. She presented testimony transcripts from multiple witnesses, with identifying information removed to protect those still living, but with enough detail about their credentials and experiences to establish credibility. She compiled satellite imagery showing the areas where analysts reported artificial obscuration, areas where public data quality is inexplicably lower than surrounding regions. And she made a direct appeal. Other countries have satellites. Independent researchers have access to ice-penetrating radar data. Pilots fly over Antarctica. Scientists work there. If what these witnesses are telling me is true, then the evidence is there for others to find. I'm providing enough information that those with resources and access can investigate independently. The reaction from authorities was conspicuous silence. No denials, no confirmations, no lawsuits or prosecutions. Just silence. Linda interprets this silence as significant. She says that if she were making it up, if these testimonies were fabricated, authorities would say so. They would discredit her. They would sue her for defamation or charge her with spreading disinformation. But they are not. They are saying nothing. Addressing it would require them to either confirm what she is revealing or explain why so many credible military and scientific personnel are lying, and they do not want to do either. Some researchers began attempting to verify Linda's claims. Amateur satellite imagery analysts started examining the coordinates she provided, looking for anomalies. Some claimed to find unusual formations. Others saw nothing definitive. A team of scientists submitted requests to access historical ice-penetrating radar data from the areas Linda mentioned. Most requests were denied on grounds of national security classification or proprietary research protection. Some interpreted those refusals as suspicious for what should be scientific geological data. One former Antarctic research station worker came forward publicly to support Linda's claims, stating that everyone who had worked on the continent for extended periods knew there were areas you did not go and questions you did not ask, and that classified military operations regularly occurred separate from scientific activities. Meanwhile, Linda continued releasing testimonies. Each new account added details, including descriptions of symbols found on structures, geometric patterns unlike any known writing system, accounts of electronic equipment malfunctioning near certain excavation sites, suggesting electromagnetic interference from unknown sources, and most controversially, claims that some recovered artifacts had been studied and reverse-engineered at facilities in the United States. One of the most detailed testimonies came from a materials scientist who claimed to have briefly worked on a classified project analyzing samples from Antarctic excavations. According to his account, the materials were metallic, but with properties that did not match any known alloys, including resistance to corrosion, unusual strength-to-weight ratios, and characteristics suggesting manufacturing processes not achievable with known technology. When he asked about the origin of the samples, he was told only that they were Antarctic recovery, and that his analysis should focus on composition and properties, not origin or age. He completed his contracted work, received payment, and signed non-disclosure agreements. But the experience convinced him that something extraordinary had been found in Antarctica. Another witness, a logistics coordinator who had worked for the National Science Foundation U.S. Antarctic Program, described manifests for equipment shipments that did not match any known scientific research program, including industrial excavation equipment, specialized drilling tools, and sealed transport containers accompanied by military escorts. When she inquired about these shipments, she was told they were Department of Defense projects and not under National Science Foundation oversight. Linda summarized, multiple independent witnesses with no connection to each other, describing components of the same reality. Structures beneath the ice. Technology that should not exist. Ongoing classified operations. Multi-government awareness and cooperation. This is not one person making wild claims. This is a pattern of evidence from credible sources that demands serious investigation. The implications of Linda's investigation, if true, are staggering. They challenge fundamental assumptions about human history, technological development, and our understanding of civilization's timeline. If ancient structures exist beneath Antarctic ice, structures built when the continent was not frozen, then there was a civilization advanced enough to build cities over 12,000 years ago. This predates Sumerian civilization, the Egyptian pyramids, and every other known ancient culture by thousands of years. If this civilization possessed technology we still do not fully understand, it suggests that human progress is not linear, that we are not the first advanced civilization on this planet. That knowledge has been lost, and perhaps is being slowly recovered. If multiple governments have known about this for 70 years and kept it secret, it raises questions about what else is being hidden. Why the secrecy? What are the geopolitical implications? Who controls the recovered technology? What are they doing with it? And perhaps most unsettling, if this civilization was advanced enough to build what witnesses describe, what happened to them? Why did they disappear? Was it climate change? The ending of the last ice age? Was it something else? And could whatever caused their collapse happen again? Linda does not claim to have all the answers. She is careful to distinguish between what witnesses have told her, what she has been able to verify, and what remains speculation. She believes the evidence she has compiled demands official investigation and public disclosure. Linda says she is not asking people to believe her. She is asking them to look at the testimonies she has collected from military personnel, scientists, and contractors who have been to Antarctica. These are real people with real credentials describing real experiences. They deserve to be heard. And if they are telling the truth, if even half of what they have told her is accurate, then we are living in a world very different from what we have been taught. At 81, Linda Moulton Howe knows she does not have unlimited time left. She is spending her remaining years compiling and releasing the Antarctica testimonies because she believes this is the most important investigation of her career. Everything else she has worked on, including cattle mutilations, UFO encounters, and government secrecy, points toward the same conclusion. We are not being told the truth about our history, our planet, and our place in the universe. Antarctica is where the physical evidence exists. It is not speculation. It is not theory. It is buried under the ice, and people have seen it. She is trying to make sure their testimonies do not die with them. She is currently working on a comprehensive documentary that will present all the testimonies, evidence, and analysis she has compiled. She is also depositing copies of her complete investigation, including the names of sources who have given posthumous permission for identification, with multiple institutions, to ensure the information survives, even if something happens to her. Critics continue to dismiss Linda's work as conspiracy theory. They point to the lack of physical evidence accessible to independent verification. They note that eyewitness testimony, even from credible sources, is not proof. They argue that classified operations in Antarctica could have conventional explanations unrelated to ancient civilizations. Linda's supporters, including some scientists and researchers who have examined her methodology, argue that the pattern of testimonies is too consistent to dismiss. They say the refusal of authorities to address or investigate the claims is itself suspicious. They note that artificial obscuration of certain Antarctic areas in satellite imagery suggests something is being hidden. Supporters also point out that Linda has nothing to gain from fabricating this story. She is a respected Emmy Award-winning journalist with a long career. She is not selling books or promoting products. She is simply presenting testimonies from people who claim to have witnessed something extraordinary. The truth about Antarctica remains contested. What is undeniable is that Linda Moulton Howe has spent 25 years collecting testimonies from credible witnesses who describe discoveries beneath the ice that challenge conventional history. Whether those testimonies represent reality, misinterpretation, or something in between will ultimately be determined by whether official disclosure ever occurs or whether independent research can verify the claims. But Linda has done what she set out to do. She has preserved the testimonies of people who believed they had seen something important. These are witnesses who, as they approached death, decided that truth was more important than secrecy. They trusted her to tell their stories. Linda said, "Before I die, I must tell the truth. Not my truth. Their truth. The truth of military personnel and scientists who went to Antarctica and saw things that are not supposed to exist. Things that prove we do not know our own history. Things that governments have decided we are not ready to know about. But these witnesses decided we are ready. They decided that keeping this secret until everyone who knows dies is wrong. So they told her. And now I am telling you. There are structures beneath the Antarctic ice. Ancient structures. Advanced structures. Multiple governments know about them and have been conducting classified recovery operations for decades. The witnesses I have interviewed are not crazy. They are not lying. They are trying to share one of the most important discoveries in human history before it is too late. Whether you believe it or not, at least now it is documented. At least now their testimonies are preserved. At least now, when official disclosure eventually happens, and I believe it will, people will know that there were voices trying to tell the truth all along. Linda Moulton Howe has fulfilled her promise to the witnesses who trusted her. She has told their stories. She has compiled the evidence. She has put it all on the record. Somewhere beneath the ice of Antarctica, if these testimonies are accurate, lie structures that could rewrite human history. Artifacts that could prove civilization is older than we have been taught. Technology that could demonstrate we are not the first advanced culture on this planet. And in offices in Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and elsewhere, if Linda's sources are telling the truth, officials know about it. They have known about it for decades. They have been quietly studying it, recovering it, trying to understand it, all while telling the public that Antarctica is just a frozen wasteland with penguins and research stations. The witnesses who contacted Linda are mostly gone now. They have taken their first-hand knowledge to the grave. But their testimonies remain. Their accounts are documented. Their courage in speaking out, despite the consequences, has been preserved. And Linda Moulton Howe, at 81, has done what she set out to do. She has told the truth. Or at least, she has told what multiple credible witnesses swore to her was the truth. The rest is up to us. To investigate. To demand disclosure. To question why certain areas of Antarctica remain off-limits. To ask why satellite imagery is obscured. To wonder what is really happening at the bottom of the world. Before she dies, Linda Moulton Howe has told the truth. Whether the world is ready to hear it remains to be seen. But the truth is out there, buried under 2 miles of ice, waiting to be officially acknowledged, waiting to change everything we think we know about who we are and where we came from. And thanks to Linda and her sources, we know where to look.
ということで、今日の YouTube は、南極大陸の秘密について、リンダ・モルトン・ハウスさんの、についての YouTube を 日本語で日本語字幕で、流させていただきました。今日はこれで終わります。皆様良い一日をお過ごしください。それで、高評価と、あと、なんだっけか、サブスクライブと、拡散も何卒よろしくお願いいたします。それでは、次回まで。それから、もし、皆様の中で、こういうニュースもアメリカの中でもし、目にすることがあったら、やってほしいというのがあったら、あの、下のコンテント、のところに書いてくだされば、コメントのところで、書いてくだされば、後でチェックさせていただきます。それでは今日はこれで、さようなら。Thank you. Have a nice day.